American Beauty was directed by Sam Mendes, and Sam had never directed a movie before. That was his first film. He was a sort of boy wonder of the London theater, and he was really established in London as this amazing director. But he was, he had never done a movie. And they sent me the script. Alan Ball wrote the script, and I had known Alan Ball a little bit in New York because we had started in New York around the same time. One of my best friends, Carol, was in a small company called the Alarm Dog Rep that performed like in a small black room with 25 people. And Alan used to write shows for them. And Alan, they would do entire musicals. And he was this guy that I had known through my friend Carol in New York. But now he's in LA, and I think he'd already done, I think he'd had some success already, but he wasn't super well known. Anyway, they sent me the script. It was a very good script, right away. I could see that. And I had agreed to do a play. That was the thing. I had agreed to do, must have been Hedda Gabler. Yeah, had to have been. And I hadn't done a play in a long time, and it was, when you schedule something in a regional theater, you have to do it way in advance, and you can't say, excuse me, I'm so sorry, I'm not available, I can't do it. You have to do it. So I said, I'd really like to do the movie, but I'm doing this play. There was another film also at the same time that I was asked to do that was much more lucrative and much a kind of a good job and a good thing. So there was that. And then Kevin Spacey was doing Iceman Cometh on Broadway. So actually both of us said, we'd like to do this, but we have this problem. So they scooched the dates around, and I went to meet Sam Mendes, and Sam, it's a very awkward, I always feel awkward with directors having to kind of put themselves in that position. It's very hard to discuss what you're going to do. And most very good movie directors, they don't actually talk a lot. We're much more verbose in the theater. Everybody's always talking. Talking about their ideas and their concepts and how they see it. But movie directors seem to do that less, I think. Or maybe that's just because I'm an actor and so they do it less with us. But some of them do talk a lot, but most of them don't. Anyway, so what could Sam say? He had this script, he had this idea, we talked, and I just liked him immediately. He's one of these people that has an extraordinary confidence, but no arrogance. And even with that, even being a new director, there was just something about him. So I'm trying to think how I prepared. I don't remember. What did I do? I'm sure it'll come to me. Yeah, because I'm big on that. I love to research, especially because you're not on the line. So when you're filling up your goodie bag of things you want to have next to you when you're working, it's good to have a lot of stuff. We rehearsed for about a week, which is extremely unusual in movies. That's a lot. That's a lot of rehearsal. Sometimes you rehearse not a minute, or maybe a day. It's crazy. But I had to learn about that because I didn't know what you did. I never took a screen. Some of you are screen acting majors. I never took a class. I never stood in front of a camera in a learning situation. I should have. I wish I had, but I didn't. So by that time, though, I'd made some movies. So we did. We rehearsed for probably 4 or 5 hours for 5 days. That's a lot. And that's where Sam's kind of talent and brilliance came in, because he's such a, he knows how to make a company. He knows how to get people interdependent very quickly, which the work does anyway. And the writing was so good. But I knew how difficult it was going to be, some of the work was going to be, and emotionally demanding. I felt an instinctive and intuitive connection to the character. I'm laughing now because she's such an insane maniac, but I did, and I knew the writing was excellent. So when you have good writing, you're just riding the wave of that in a sense. And there was a great cinematographer on that film. His name was Conrad Hall. He's since died. But he had won the Academy Award years before for Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. He was a very experienced guy, and I knew him. I'd done another movie with him, a movie called Love Affair. So I knew him, and I knew how great he was. So here is this extremely experienced older cinematographer and new director. And when Sam was trying to figure out who to hire as the cinematographer, he called me and he said, you know, I'm meeting with Conrad Hall. I said, I thought, that's fantastic. And sometime later, Conrad called me. He was 70, in his early 70s at that point. He called me and he said, Annette, I'm so excited, I got it. And I always remember that phone call because that's who I want to be. I want to be Conrad Hall in that moment where he's so excited because he loved the movie and he really wanted to do it and he wanted to get the job. So having someone like that behind, and he didn't always operate the camera. A lot of cinematographers operate, some do, some don't. So sometimes they just set up the lights and then somebody else actually operates the camera. In this case, somebody else was operating most of the time, except for some very crucial scenes. And then Conrad would sit behind the camera. The reason I'm talking about that is that that's part of the whole atmosphere that's created is the group dynamic. And when we would go in to rehearse in the morning to prepare the scene, because usually what you do in a movie is you go in together all as a group and you figure out where the scene is going to work, where you're going to be, and they start talking about where they're going to put the camera, and you start working that out, and then the actors go off and get their hair and makeup while they set the lights up and the camera. So Conrad would always come in and he was so warm and he was so emotionally invested, and he would sit in the corner and just watch. It's such an emotional component as a cinematographer, and there was a scene that was very difficult. It's hard to discuss how you prepare as an actor because the only thing that really matters is there's no one way to do it, and whatever gets you there in the moment is valid. And all of the basic modern acting techniques that started and were articulated by Stanislavski really apply. What do I want? What is in my way? And what am I doing to get it? If you can work and not think about those things, better. If you find yourself intuitively engaged, and they always say trust your instincts, it's true. That's more powerful than anything. So the things that you learn in acting school help you for the moments when you're stuck. Wait, you feel stiff, you feel phony, you feel tense, you don't know quite what you're doing. Then you go back to the basics of, wait, am I listening? Am I really engaged with my partner? what do I want? What am I doing? What's in the way? Obstacles are very important. You want to give yourself lots of obstacles, if you know what I'm saying. Obstacles in the acting school sense of obstacles. So we were doing this very difficult scene, and when you're doing film, you know, part of it is, when do you have to do it? Now, when you do plays, you basically know when. You rehearse from this time to that time, and you rehearse for that number of weeks, and then you go into tech, and then you start previews, and you know that at 8 p.m. you'll be doing the show, and you'll have to find your moments, and there's that one very scary thing you have to do, or 2 or 3 or 4 things. But with movies, it's so crazy. You get there really early in the morning, which is horrible. And then, you know, okay, so you know you're doing that scene that day. That's a very difficult scene. So, you know, I warm up. I do that thing where you roll around on the floor, and I still do that. I did it this morning. You have to warm up for life, not only for, but so yeah, so I was all ready to go, and we were on a street in, you know, Woodland Hills out in the suburbs, and I was in my trailer, you know, down on the carpet, kind of getting myself ready, and I'm just very, like, I tend to get very quiet in times like that. I had some, that was the first time I think I ever used headphones. I had, what did I have? Oh, Sam had made me a tape. Sam had made me a tape of music that was so inspiring and somewhat funny and also poignant. And I remember, Desperado was on it. Bobby Darin was on it. I mean, how genius is that? That he made me a tape of music. It was so helpful. So I think I was listening to that tape, and I was sort of trying to shut out the rest of the world. And so we shot this scene. It was a scene where I'm by myself, and I was really nervous. So I want to talk about being nervous, because it's so important to talk about. And self-doubt. Just get used to it. That's all I have to say. It will never go away. So just stop any fantasy that your insecurity or self-doubt would go away, because if it did, you would be insane. Because it is part of what we have to handle. It's not the absence that you're looking for. It's using it and going on anyway. So you have to learn how to know yourself, know your proclivities, know what makes you crazy, what makes you more nervous, what calms you down more. But it's a human response to what we do. We're getting up and putting ourselves in front of people. If we didn't have fear and doubt, it would be a real problem. So I was very nervous, and you know, would I be able to do it when they were ready? Because of course, we're going to shoot this scene first, and then we'll probably be doing that around this time, and then something happens. You know, there's a technical problem, and they can't do it at that time. They're doing it 2 hours later. But you timed your caffeine to hit right at that point. So now it's like you're on the downside. It's like, oh no, it can't be at 1, because then I'm exhausted. But you see what I'm saying. This is what happens. And you have to be ready when they're ready. That's the job. And no one cares if you're not, because that's your job. And you are privileged to be an actor, and it's an honor, and and everybody else stops working on movies or TV, and it's you and the camera operator and the guy with the mic, or the girl with the mic. And there might be a few other people working, but most people now they're on their phones. That's okay. So we did the thing, and I was so relieved. I was like, because that's one thing in movies, is like you're done. It's not like a play where you have to keep doing it. It's like you've done the really hard thing, it's over. Now you're on to other scenes and other hard things, but at least that one is done. So I thought, okay, I've done it, it's over. I'm not going to think about that anymore. And one day, I looked at the call sheet, and the scene was there again. It was like a nightmare. It was like, whoa. No, I remember where I was standing in my house when I saw it. I thought, that can't be there. And I'm laughing now. I was not laughing. I called Sam. Sam, I see that this is on the call sheet again. He said, oh yeah, it was too dark. Conrad, my God, who shot the scene, who looked through the lens, he loves dark. He's really good at it. And if you've seen the movie, you see the moments where he can do that. It's very hard to do that artfully well and be able to see the actors and, and whatever. It was too dark, that's all. These things happen. So they had no way of seeing me. So I had to do it again. So what can I tell you? That's the job. That's what you sign up for. Nobody has to do this. You do not have to do this. So you can complain, but only to a few people who are carefully selected. But if you're working on something and somebody's driving you crazy, which will always happen, I recommend limiting how much you complain about it. Limit it to either no one or maybe one person. Because the more you talk about it, you perpetuate it. The bottom line is you have to get out there and do what you're doing, however that other person is behaving in a way that you don't like, whether it's on stage or off stage. So, and if it's somebody you're supposed to be in love with, which often happens, then you even have a bigger job. Because you have antipathy. You not only don't like them, you might have antipathy towards that person. Guess what? Too bad. Because you only hurt yourself in the end. In the end, you have to do your performance. So you have to find a way. And there are certain religious traditions that believe that those are the people that are your gurus, as it were. Those are the people that teach you the most about yourself and about the circumstance. And maybe there's some truth in that, too.